Hello, this is Power in the Word, and I'm Scott Reed. Thanks for joining me for another study session of the Come Follow Me New Testament. This week's study is that of the book of Revelation, and as we've pulled that aside a little bit so that we can get some deeper, detailed information and study, this particular session is on that book of Revelation, chapters 4 and 5. You may need to go back and look at 1 through 3 from earlier. We have to see that right up front. So this is exciting. If you look at chapter 4 to start, so jumping in, notice sometimes we don't catch this, but that verse 1, after this I looked. I tell my institute classes all the time, you have to know what the context is of what he's saying. Verse 1, chapter 4, you can't just jump into right here in your heading and say, oh, we're going to experience the throne room of God, without noting what has taken place right before, because it's the context. So after this I looked must be underlined, and we are going to peek back just for a second and note that in the 7 letters of John from the Lord to the 7 branches of the church that still existed at John's time, the last one was to the Laodiceans, verse 14. In Laodicea, he told them that if they were faithful and repented, that he would, verse 20, stand at the door and knock. And if any man were to hear his voice and open the door, they could come in and be in the presence of God. Notice, so overcoming this world and sitting on God's throne with him, for he overcame, is really the invitation for us to come through a veil. That's the representative or symbolic representative here on earth, to come through that veil and into his celestial room or throne room. That's the invitation that he gave last of all in chapter 3. So when we come to chapter 4, interesting, John says, I beheld a door. Well, that was the last thing he saw and was writing about in chapter 3, is that there was a door in heaven. So here is this veil or door, and a voice is heard like a trumpet. Remember, trumpets are used for announcements because they're clear and loud. Okay, so an announcement was given to John to come up hither, and I will show you things which must be hereafter. We learned last week, last lesson, that the book of Revelation is only for the things of the future. It is not a review of the past necessarily. Okay, and John is being invited as one who has overcome the world. You see that? That tells you John has been true and faithful. His invitation to come in, okay, and join us in the throne room. My note to myself in verse 1 is that as you look in, the first thing that actually is seen is this door into heaven. It remains opened so that all who have been invited, if they desire, they may pass like John is going to and come into the throne room and see future events. He says, verse 2, I was in the Spirit. And that's a good note. We need to trust in the revelation given to us by the Spirit of the Lord. And he sees a throne and somebody sitting on the throne. So start noting this image that he's trying to paint for you. He sees throne. He's going to tell you what the throne is like, and somebody sitting on the throne and what they're like. Here, I've made a note that the first thing that John sees in heaven is the throne, and this symbol occurs more than 40 different times in the book of Revelation. It symbolizes the absolute sovereignty of God. Okay? Remembering that thrones are a symbol of one who judges and one that rules. So that's good symbolism for God. Verse 3, he says, and the person that was sitting on the throne, he looked to me like a jasper and a sardine stone. And there was a rainbow round about the throne in the sight like an emerald. Okay, so a couple of things. Note, jasper, sardine, and emerald are all gemstones that Israel would have been very, very familiar with. From Old Testament times, in the instruction on given Moses for the building of the tabernacle and its vestments on what you were to wear, the jasper, the sardine, and the emerald stones were all placed in the breastplate of the high priest. As I've noted here in my footnote, Exodus 28. Notice the symbolism behind these three stones. First of all, the jasper is green in color, a symbol for life, and it was the very last stone in the breastplate representing the tribe of Benjamin, our last son of Israel. The sardine stone is red as a symbol of death, like blood, and is the very first stone representing the son and tribe of Reuben. So already do you see some amazing symbolism of the person who sits on the throne governs life and death, green and red, and is the first and the last. You see that? With the stones of Reuben and Benjamin. And it says that his throne was like a rainbow, in the sight like an emerald. Well, the emerald is also green, symbol of life, but it was the fourth stone and represented the tribe of Judah. So there's an association here with the person on the throne and the tribe of Judah. Fascinating that Jesus Christ, when born into mortality, came through the Israelite line of Judah. The kings. Okay? So to have the person on the throne associated with Judah, with the last and the first, and the red and the green, and sitting on a throne, and then you have rainbow here then. The rainbow being a perfect symbol of covenants. I don't know if you're aware, but a rainbow has 7 colors in a complete rainbow. It has 7 colors. Originally, it was not given to Noah, though we sometimes associate it to Noah. Here in Genesis 9, it was given to the person before Noah's dispensation, and it was Enoch that the Lord made a covenantal promise to Enoch before he did Noah, but it's only found in the JST. So many of us miss that. And then again to Noah. So this rainbow is a mighty symbol of covenants and remains today as a symbol. For Joseph Smith said, until that rainbow is removed, okay, in the year that it does remove, that it will be close to the second coming, or the year of the second coming. Here in Teachings of the Prophet Joseph Smith, or the covenants that he made to men are upheld. Interesting that in the last days there are supposed to be droughts, and the sun, moon, and stars are to be darkened. Interesting that light is taken, and drought is the removal of moisture, hence the very two things that make rainbows. Okay, so this rainbow is a great covenantal symbol. I should probably note here, however, that it is never called a rainbow. It is only called a bow. So sometimes, if we're not careful, we'll miss this idea of a bow, as in tie a bow, as the sign of a covenant being made, and that you are bound in a covenantal relationship as you are tied into a bow. Okay, verse 4. It states that round about this throne, and there's a JST right here, okay, round about in the midst of the throne, the JST adds in the midst or in the center, we see that there are 24 seats. All are occupied with 24 elders sitting clothed in white raiment, and on their heads are crowns of gold. Now, hopefully the image that you see here is we see God in the middle. We see thrones. Those who, 24 elders would be two sets of 12, possibly our New Testament set of apostles and our Book of Mormon set of apostles. So we have two sets, and they are clothed in white raiment, suggesting temple clothing, and they wear crowns on their head. The word, remember, for crowns is not the medal crown, the diadem, but it is Stephanos in Greek, which is the symbol of the laurel leaves won in victory. So remember, this is written in Greek, and so you see that crown being given to those who win, and they are crowns of gold. Even more symbolic, you see that the high priest, according to Exodus 28, was to wear a gold on around his hat. There was a gold plate that was placed on it, which was supposed to read, "Holiness to the Lord." So we see even in that great temple symbolism. Okay, verse 5. Out of this throne proceeded lightnings, thunderings, and voices, and they were 7 lamps of fire a-burning. Now, more imagery happening here, maybe some more Greek to help you. The Greek translates lightnings, I've given it to you down here, as sounds, thunderings as tones, and voices as voices. So sounds, tones, and voices. Sounds like there's some talking going on in the throne room. Interesting that Moses, as he approached Mount Sinai, another temple experience in Exodus chapter 19, he said there was heard on Mount Sinai thunderings and lightning. So this temple idea and pattern continues here. Thunderings, Elder McConkie suggested, were the angels. And so what we conclude is that there is talking going on in the throne room. And there is a conversation between the person that's sitting on the throne and those who are in the throne room who are doing the work of God. As they come and go and discuss things, there is conversation going on. Okay, so that's great temple imagery as angels and servants come and go. Note here the 7 lamps of fire burning. 7 is corrected to be not 7 lamps, but 7 servants that may hold additional symbolism. 7, remember, is the word that means perfection in Hebrew. But notice this. You'll recognize the word here. Thummim is the word for light or lights. And in Hebrew, Urim here, Urim is that of perfection. Oh, excuse me, I switched those. Perfection is Urim. Lights, no, let's try to get this again. Perfection is the word for Thummim. There we go. Lights is Urim. So, through a Urim and a Thummim, one receives perfect light or revelation. So here you have 7 lamps of burning, 7 lights or Urim and Thummim, perfect light. We're told that the place where God resides, section 130, is a great Urim and Thummim, or perfect light, 7 lamps of fire burning. Oh, fascinating. The imagery just continues to build as you look at the throne, and before the throne there is a great big sea of glass like unto a crystal. Maybe today we would call that like a crystal ball. Now, we're told that in section 130, I've given to you here as a footnote, that the earth, when it is in a celestial state, will become like a great sea of glass, or a Urim and Thummim. So, for example, if we look at this, let's go to section 130. There we go. Verse 8. The place where God resides is a great Urim and Thummim. This earth that we live on, in its sanctified and immortal state, will become like a crystal and will be a Urim and Thummim. So if it's kind of like a crystal ball, those who live in a celestial state can, notice, look therein and learn of things of a lower order or inferior kingdoms. So you would say the earth will become a way to learn of telestial and terrestrial kingdoms and what is going on in those places. Fascinating. But then, verse 10, a white stone, one of the blessings that we'll receive if we overcome, given last week in Revelation 2:17, will become a Urim and Thummim. And if you look into it, it will teach you of things of a higher order or celestial kingdoms. So between the earth and your own personal Urim and Thummim, which verse 11 says, can be activated by the new name, then you can know the order of, or the going-ons of, celestial, terrestrial, and telestial kingdoms. So we see that God has a way for not just knowing because of his experience, but what is actually going on in celestial, terrestrial, and telestial kingdoms. In the throne room, according to John, he receives all revelation. He sees and knows all. He is omnipotent and omniscient. It's awesome. Verse 7. Then he says, he sees 4 beasts in verse 6 who are full of eyes, have all these eyes around them. And we'll see down in verse 8, they also have 6 wings. So let's look at these beasts. Verse 7 says, the first beast is like a lion. So note that. Be sure to underline it. The second beast is like a calf. The third beast is like that of a man, face of a man. The fourth beast is like a flying eagle, this flying serpent. Okay, note now this imagery would make Israel really pause, because as you carefully examine the symbolism of each of these 4 beasts, the pattern that is uncovered is that you're seeing the camp of Israel and the assigned position and tribal standard of 4 of its tribes. So note, I've given to you here, according to the standards given by way of assignment in their patriarchal blessings, Genesis 49 and Deuteronomy 33 is where those patriarchal blessings are listed. You find that the lion is the symbol of Judah, that the calf, or sometimes we call it an ox, is that of Ephraim, that the man or the mandrake is that of Reuben. All you Harry Potter fans just went crazy because the mandrake it's actually a real plant. Okay? And the fourth beast is that of a flying eagle, sometimes seen as a flying serpent, was that of Dan. So he just gave 4 of the symbols of the standards or the tribes of Israel as assigned by the Lord. We'll see that there's going to be positions assigned in a minute, okay, to each of them, and where and how they camp according to Numbers chapter 2. So just note Numbers 2, Genesis 49, Deuteronomy 33 for the camp and the standards and the patriarchal blessings of each of the 12 sons. Note, verse 8 says, these 4 beasts had, as I mentioned, 6 wings, and they are full of eyes everywhere. Now, we're told in section 77, a section that Joseph Smith was given later, when in March of 32, Joseph is translating scriptures, and the following explanations are given to him by the Lord, which purposely tells me that he desires us to know and study the book of Revelation. He expects at least this much. Here we've mentioned the sea of glass, verse 1, that it is the earth as it is immortal and sanctified to become a celestial kingdom. Oh, here's the 4 beasts. So question number 2, what are we to understand about this? Joseph is told that they are figurative expressions. Notice the number 4. 4 is a symbol for all mankind. Okay? All kind. Every nation, kindred, tongue, people, north, south, east, west, heart, might, mind, strength. All of those are 4s. So it's figurative and represents man, beasts, creeping things, and fowls of the air. We do learn, here's a little side note, that those things which are spiritual are in the likeness of that temporal, and that which is temporal is in the likeness of the spiritual. In other words, a rhino in heaven, in the spirit world, was always a rhino and was made in exactly the same likeness and image here. You and I have always been sons and daughters of God, and hence our spirits look just like our bodies, with all the same organs and operations. We know that Moses 3:7 tells us that our natural or temporal bodies were born in a spiritual setting first, and Ether 3:16-17 confirms that when the brother of Jared sees the spirit finger of Jesus and he says, "Why are you so surprised? Didn't you know that that's what I'm going to be born with? Is if I have fingers now, I'm going to have fingers then in the future when I'm born as a mortal." So, little side note. We also learn, though, that the 4 beasts were not only representative of classes, but they were literal beasts. Individual beasts of 4 different kinds that had been saved and lived in heaven in God's kingdom at that time. So they're not only representative, that they were also individual beasts. Enjoin, which tells you that yes, all dogs go to heaven, and so do animals. They live in our kingdoms too. Okay, so that might help you with the 4 beasts. Here's the question about their eyes and wings. Eyes, because the way we gain light and knowledge is through our eyes. Hence, the eyes are representations of light and knowledge. While the wings of these beasts are also figurative, and they represent, according to the Lord, power, so authority, to move and to act, which suggests agency. That, by definition, is what agency is. And so we have this idea that they are full of power and authority with light and knowledge. And that's what he's trying to express to us. Okay. Coming back to Revelation, we've got our 6 wings and our and animals full of eyes. Or you would say, verse 8, there is a representative of all mankind in that throne room that have agency and power and authority, full of light and knowledge. And notice, they rest not day or night, but they express this, saying, verse 8, "Holy, holy, holy, Lord God Almighty, which was, which is, and which is to come." Or you would say, the beginning and end, or Alpha and Omega, you are holy. But they denote it through holy, holy, holy is a 3 repetitious prayer. So they offer up, you would say, this prayer of gratitude towards God by by a 3 repetition ordinance. Yeah. Or you and I would call it, in the throne room, the true order of prayer. It also happens in Isaiah 6 verse 3. So once again, this idea back to Isaiah chapter 6. Notice, as we jump forward then into them giving glory and honor and thanks, they fall down before him and worship him. We move to chapter 5, where he continues to paint this picture by saying, "And I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book." Now, this book will be kind of the center point of the book of Revelation. We're going to learn about what the book is here in a minute. Notice it is in his dexter or his covenant hand that it resides, denoting that it has that he upholds it in righteousness. And the book is written within and on the backside and is sealed with 7 seals. So when we look at the book, what do we know? Well, when you talk about a book written within and on the backside, it denotes that it is over. See, when do you write on the back cover? You turn over your notepad because the last page has been done and you still are trying to take notes of the details. And so you scribble maybe up on the title or the cover page, and on the back side, it is full, you would say, completely full of notes. It holds it all. All the room has been taken. And the second thing, note that it has 7 seals, so we've got to discover what that is as well. Now, in Doctrine and Covenants, let's come back to section 77. When we jump down to verse 6, the question is, what are we to understand by the book which John saw, which was sealed on the back with 7 seals? We understand that it contains the revealed will, mysteries, the works of God, the hidden things of his economy concerning this earth during the 7,000 years of its continuance, or this earth's temporal existence. So it's got all the notes of what has taken place here on earth and how God has worked with all of mankind from beginning to the very last day. It's got all the notes of mortality. And verse 7, what you understand of the 7 seals is that the first seal holds all the notes of the first 1,000 years. The second seal has the second 1,000 until the 7th seal is completed, and it is the end then of mortal temporal existence, okay, which is the end of the 7th seal. So when we jump back to here, note the book which John saw represented the real history of the world, what the eye of God has seen, what the recording angel has written, and the 7,000 years corresponding to the 7 seals of the apocalyptic volume are as 7 great days during which Mother Earth will fulfill her mortal mission, laboring 6 days and resting upon the 7th, her period of sanctification, or we would call that millennium. These 7 days do not include the period of our planet's creation and preparation as a dwelling place for man. They are only limited to her Earth's temporal existence, that is, to time, considered as distinct from eternity. So only what has happened after the fall and until this earth is completed its temporal existence will be 7 1,000-year periods, or 7,000 years. Good. Okay, note the entire vision from beginning to end takes about 317 verses. Yet John spends only 11 verses, or about 3.5% of the first 5,000 years of history. So over the first 5,000 years, we only have 11 verses on. That's only 3%, which is about 71% of the Earth's total 7,000 years of recorded history to come. Okay, where 71% is the first 5,000 years, and yet we only have 11 verses on it. Remember that this book only covers that of the future. The sixth seal, or our day, brothers and sisters, covers about 14 verses. That's it. Where the millennium itself is treated only in 7 verses. Revelation 21 through 7. So where is the majority of the book of Revelation spending its time? By far, the largest portion of the book, 211 verses, describes the short season after the opening of the 7th seal, but before the second coming of the Savior. Now, we'll handle that a little bit better when we see that his coming does not start the millennial day, or the millennial day of peace. It does start the millennium, or the countdown of the 1,000 years. Okay? But it is not the starting of peace and comfort and that of a terrestrial order. That will come somewhat into the 7th seal, and we'll look at that a little bit more. So note, then, you have this book that is written. It's got all of God's real history notes from beginning to end. If it's sealed, like the wax that was poured and then a stamp placed on it, okay, like ancient days, you would say that that denotes protection, authenticity, validity. You don't have to worry about false facts in this book about you. Everything has gone over and has been protected as being exactly what transpired. Fascinating, huh? Okay. So, 7, once again, denotes that where 2 or 3 witnesses were needed according to Hebrew law. We know that. Okay, I've given you 2 references. In the Greek, because this was done in New Testament, Roman diplomatic validity required 7 official witnesses, not just 2 or 3. So here God, in New Testament times, has been sure to follow the law of official witnesses by giving 7 witnesses. Whew. It's just so good, the symbolism. Okay, verse 2. He says, I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice. Now, modern day Revelation 88:112 and Revelation 10:1 both suggest that the strong angel here, the mighty and strong angel, is that of the archangel himself. Arch mean head, angel, who is Michael, or you know him as Adam. Michael is a Hebrew word. Notice God's name at the end, Elohim. Michael translates as he who is like God. So here is this strong angel, suggests Michael, proclaiming with a loud voice. Remember, a trumpet has been the symbol of that, loud and clear. Who is worthy to open the book and to loose the seals thereof? That's what Michael screams out. Is anyone worthy to open this book with seals on it? No man in heaven, nor in earth, neither under the earth, was able to open the book. No one is worthy to even look thereon. And John says, I started to cry. I wept much because no one was found worthy to open and read the book, not even to look upon it. And one of the elders, hey, John, nudges him and says, quit crying. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Okay, there's one of the titles that you're going to have to underline for Jesus Christ. Because remember what tribe he comes through? Lion denotes kingship, like the cowardly lion. Okay, is the king of the forest. The Lion of the tribe of Judah is Jesus Christ, because he's the king that comes through the tribe of Judah. He's the root or the descendant of King David. So both of those denote his relationship of what gives him the right to be worthy to open the book. And he has prevailed, or you would say overcome, as we looked at in chapter 3 right at the end. And therefore he can open the book and loose the 7 seals thereof. I'm giving you some good references on Lion of the tribe of Judah and the root of David. 6, and I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne of the 4 beasts, and in the midst of the elders, there stood a lamb, as it had been slain. It has 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God. Your correction, we've not had 7 spirits. Okay. Notice, whoops, there we go. In 6b, we have 12 horns and 12 eyes, and the 12 servants of God sent forth into all the earth. So 7 is marvelous symbolism for perfection, gives some great ideas for us, but Joseph Smith corrects that with the authority or the number of 12 found in his power and in his light and wisdom, that it's 12, symbol of priesthood, authority. Now, the first time I saw this, I was like, what? Notice, here is the lamb. First of all, be sure to darken lamb. The most frequent symbol referring to Jesus Christ in Revelation is the lamb. Of the 30 times in the New Testament, the word for lamb, right here, I've given to you 2 in Greek, 29 of them are in the book of Revelation. So there's only one other one. It's in like John 21. Okay? So John is really the one that teaches us about the symbol of the lamb for Jesus Christ. Moreover, the fact that the Greek word here, it depicts always a slain lamb. That's why lamb is used, right? It's to denote Jesus Christ's sacrifice, indicating that the symbol of the lamb should never be separated from that of depicting Jesus, that they go together. It's the sacrificial lamb who suffers patiently, innocently, and representatively. So be sure that you get lamb always denotes sacrifice. Now, note that the lamb stood. Well, that's weird. If he's been sacrificed, how can he stand? Well, this here is a most peculiar lamb. First, the lamb is portrayed as standing, as if it had been slaughtered. In the vision, the lamb is very much, though, alive. The perfect passive participle pictures the sacrifice as having been accomplished already, with the marks of the slaughter still visible. Do you catch that? Jesus Christ then is seen already as the sacrificial lamb, bearing the marks of his sacrifice. That's fantastic imagery. And here the lamb sacrificed, and with his special notes or marks of his worthiness to be so, he comes and he takes the book out of God the Father's hands, the person who sits on the throne. We do have, by the way, in our modern day revelation, we have section 137 verse 3, which also Joseph Smith said he saw the Father and the Son sitting on the throne together. Okay, so the imagery is good. And the reception of the scroll from the Father demonstrates the passing then of judgment and authority is given from Father and is now committed to judge and reign to his Son. Okay. When he takes the book out of Father's hands, notice the beasts and the elders, they all fall down before the Lamb, and they offer up like golden vials full of odors, or 8a in your footnote says like incense, because incense smells, that's why we burn it. And that they are the symbol of the prayers of the saints going upward to the presence of God. And that is revealed here in Revelation 8, 3 and 4, or 2 and 3. I've given it to you down here in my own note, where I say, the golden vials full of odors, which are the prayers of the saints. The prayers of the saints symbolize a censer or a bowl of incense ascending up, the smoke up to God, is offered in a throne room